Hey everybody, Jeff Stone here with day 92 of the year 2015 at MagicReview.com. We're looking at Leading Thoughts today by Rawlins. It is a 2-disc set here, which very easily should have been a single disc. However, they only charge you the price of one, which is $35. But the reason they put it on 2 discs is because it's really long. 2 hours and 40 minutes, and it's only 7 tricks. So think about that for a minute. I mean, I've seen DVDs that have like 15 or 20 effects on it that are 2 hours. So all that means is the explanations are extremely long. The first DVD was about an hour and 15 minutes, and it only covered 3 effects. And the performances weren't even that long. I mean, they're a little bit long, but the explanations were, whew, they're a little tough to get through, frankly. That's my only complaint about this set, though. This is a pretty good set. You get 7 effects, and now I will say there's nothing. I mean, this is pretty standard mentalism stuff. There's a newspaper test, where you tear a newspaper up into different pieces, and then a piece is selected, and then you divine information from that little square of newspaper. There's a thought of name where a person thinks of somebody from their childhood, and you divine it. There's an effect where spectator A has his eyes closed and he finds spectator B's thought of playing card. There's what else? Yeah, I mean, they're pretty standard stuff. I could probably flip through the description here, but anyway, it's pretty standard stuff. The methods are pretty standard as well. However, there were a few different pieces of methods combined together to make layered levels of deception, which were very, very clever. One example is the candy effect. I can't remember what it's called, but it's where you are able to tell the color of a candy by tasting it. And there are these candies in England called Smarties, and if you're American, you think of something totally different when you think of Smarties. In America, Smarties come in a little teeny wrapper there's a little stack of them. They're little wafer look, not wafers, but they're little chalk looking thing. They almost look like little Rolaids or something like that. Small colored ones. That's a Smartie here in the United States, but in England apparently it's like what we Americans would call sixlets. If you're familiar with those little sixlets, they're like little round chocolate balls with a candy coating. It's almost like a round M&M. So that's what he uses in England, or these Smarties for this effect. And so, like M&Ms, all M&Ms taste the same. And so the effect would be essentially the same as divining what color of M&M you're eating with a blindfold on. And so it's a unique concept in the sense that not a lot of mentalism uses taste. So that one I will say, yeah, it's a bit unique and different. And the methods involved there, one of them actually relies on an interesting property of the actual English Smarties, that you wouldn't be able to do one part of it if you were to do it in America with M&Ms or sixlets or something like that. But that's a small piece of the whole routine, and so you wouldn't actually necessarily have to do that. Or you could probably order those things online. So, but anyway, there were different levels of deception going on there, and it was as I'm watching it, I'm sitting here thinking, man, okay, I know how he's doing this one big main part here, but I am not sure how he pulled off this and that. And so there's some nice layers of deception there. The effect where spectator A finds spectator B's card is a very good combination of a couple of different ideas that makes the effect very deceptive and very clever. And you're managing multiple realities for that effect, but each person is getting a good effect still. It's not, I mean, there's some dual realities where the effect that one person's getting is nowhere near as good as what the other person's getting. But in this case, there's at least 3 different things going on, and all of them are excellent effects. Again, that's an opinion, obviously, but it's the kind of thing that I think most people would agree that they're all good effects, that each person is experiencing something unique and good. But the method is what interested me. It's a nice combination of principles there. The divining of a name, it uses, it's typical standard techniques going on in most of these effects. There's imp devices and peaks and forces and that kind of stuff. And the one where you divine the spectator's thought of name is very simple and a very common method, but he adds a nice little thing to the presentation that some people might be interested in. That gives it a little bit of added flavor, I guess. Personally, I didn't care for it, but that's just an opinion of my performance style. But it's one of the things I think a lot of you might find interesting. So again, it's a nice layering and combination of things that he's putting together there that makes the routines more deceptive. As far as the performances go, they're a little bit long-winded. But again, that doesn't really matter as far as the star rating goes. And there's a lot of times in the performance where you can see that they cut because it was probably just taking too long or whatever. And they mentioned in the ad copy that it's a polished performance. That I know that's an opinion, but that's one where I would have to challenge that a little bit. I wouldn't call that a polished performance. It was pretty messy and chaotic, and he was throwing newspaper shreds on the floor, and like his opening effect, he's already making a mess, and then he's tearing pieces of paper out of a notebook and throwing that on the floor, crumbling stuff up on the floor, and through the card box on the floor, just stuff like that. Just messy, not exactly what I consider polished, and walking back and forth and that kind of stuff. So if you're looking at this to learn stage presence, I would say look elsewhere. But if you're looking for some clever and smart methods, then I think you might, some clever combinations of existing methods, I think you might like this. A couple things about the ad copy you should be aware of. There's two things. Well, let me talk one more thing about method. There's one where you divine the credit card number or whatever information you want on a credit card, and the ad copy says you never see the card, and that's true, but yet you're still able to divine the information. That's also true. It does require just a coin envelope, but the kind of coin envelope I had, it didn't quite work as well as, so I think you need a little bit different kind of coin envelope, so you may have to experiment and play around with that one a little bit. So that one, the method's good, it's just you may have to experiment a little bit more than you might be thinking, or maybe just order the exact envelopes he's using, and I think he mentions where to get them from on the video. So anyway, back to the ad copy. The lottery effect, the ad copy says that you have 6 random numbers called out, and that you reveal that you have a lottery ticket, and it says a genuine lottery ticket with those 6 numbers printed on it. Neither of those statements are accurate. It is not a genuine lottery ticket. It is, it's a real thing. It's not something you make or a prop or anything. I live in Utah. We don't have lottery here, so I don't know all the things that you can do with lottery. I've never played it. I don't. I moved out of California before they got the lottery there. I think that was a long time ago, and I think they got it in Idaho right when I moved. So I've just never really been around it. But apparently, at least in the UK, they have these slips that they kind of look like your old test fill in the bubble things from school. They kind of look like that, and you fill in the bubbles of what numbers you want. And I don't know if you submit that to try to win something, but what he was describing was that those things are free at the gas stations or whatever, and they're used for you to just write down your lottery numbers so that you can keep track of them or whatever. So I don't know if that's just a UK thing, or if they have that here in the States or not. So if you live in a lottery state, maybe you could post a comment to let everybody know if they have those. I'm not sure. But anyway, that's what you're using to reveal. So that's not a lottery ticket. It's a lottery tracking thing. Number one. Number two, it's not printed on there at all. It's the little bubbles have got been filled in or whatever. And so when I think of printed lottery ticket, I have seen the kind like in movies or whatever, where you go in and you say, hey, I want to buy these numbers, and then you pay the price and they print you out a receipt with those numbers. It's not that at all. It's one where they've been filled in on that little sheet I was just explaining. So that's a little bit misleading on the ad copy. There's one other one. I just need to double check it here. So I'm going to go look at the written review that I wrote here. Let's see here. Oh, yeah. That's a minor thing. It's about the newspaper test. They refer to it as the cleanest version they've ever seen, which, again, that's kind of an opinion thing, and maybe it is the cleanest version they've ever seen. But the method is not new at all. There's nothing new about it. This is going to sound flippant, and I promise I don't mean it that way. It's almost like saying, yeah, that trick that Ed Marlowe did with red playing cards, I changed it. I do it with blue playing cards. And now, it's not that bad what he's done a little differently there, but it's so minor, and it's the kind of thing that anybody that's done this type of newspaper test, it's so similar to what's out there that I just wouldn't call it anything special or different. That's all. So, having said all that, other than that, the one thing about the lottery ticket, that's the main beef I had with the ad copy, and I can't speak intelligently about those lottery ticket things because I don't know. So maybe those are considered genuine lottery tickets, but in the DVD, that's not how he described them. And they're definitely not printed on there. So I'll just leave it at that. Product quality overall, as I mentioned before, the descriptions were pretty tough to get through. They're very boring. And I'm sorry, Chris seems like a nice guy, and I don't have anything against him at all. So Chris, if you're watching, I'm sorry if I come across as rude or anything. I certainly don't mean that. But anyway, the descriptions were extremely long, overly detailed, way too detailed. I mean, there's even one where he said, yeah, the method for this is super simple. I could just explain it in a couple of sentences, and 25 minutes later he's done. So I don't know if that's the exact time, but it was long. So again, not making fun. I'm just letting you know that as a person who might be purchasing this, and as you watch it, sometimes sitting through those kinds of explanations can be hard, and it may be frustrating. I know for me, I don't know what it is, but I have a hard time sitting through stuff like that, man. I get all fidgety and jittery or whatever. And so it was a little bit frustrating. It could have been way condensed. And I think just a little bit of scripting would go a long way there, says the guy who does completely 100% unscripted review videos every day of his life. But that aside, I'm not charging you $35 for this video either. So a little scripting would have helped there, I think, and just to hone in and polish the explanations. Other than that, these are all, they're basically Chris Rawlins, his take and handling of, for the most part, classic plots of mentalism. I would say the exception to that is certainly the candy one, which is a very clever concept. And I'm a diabetic, and so I can't eat a whole lot of sugar, but that's something I'm actually tempted to play around with just because I like the tie-in to the fact that I am a diabetic, and I think I can put together a presentation around that would fit my style. Anyway, I'm rambling now, so I will shut up and tell you that it's 4 stars, Stone Status of Gem. That's Leading Thoughts by Chris Rawlins. So it's time for you to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and share it out to all of your people and places that you deal with, and then listen to the random iTunes song of the moment, which is, yes, Megadeth. We have not had Megadeth for a long time. That is Sweating Bullets from the Countdown to Extinction album. It's a great tune. It's a little on the dark side for sure. Speaking of Megadeth and Dave Mustaine, if you guys know the history of him, he was actually one of the original guys on Metallica, and then he was a drunk basically, and they fought a lot, and so they kicked him out of the band, and he started Megadeth. But he was actually just on Hell's Kitchen on the most recent episode, which was, I don't know when you're watching this, but anyway, the most recent episode, and he was just a guest there eating dinner there. So that was kind of cool. And it turns out his sister lives in Pocatello, Idaho, which is like 2 hours north of me. It's where I went to high school. And so I knew a guy that was friends with his sister, and he was over at his sister's, at Dave Mustaine's sister's house, And Dave Mustaine was right there on the couch sleeping, just with his back to him, just laying there asleep on the couch. And while my friend was there, I'm like, dude, did you wake him up and make him, autograph your chest or whatever? Anyway, so I'm a big fan of Megadeth. That's Sweating Bullets, and that's the end of this video. So tune in tomorrow on day 93 when we're looking at Cody's comedy book test. See, it's already funny. Cody's comedy book test. There's a book in here, and it's the Big Book of Silly Jokes, and I imagine it's some sort of a giving book or whatever for a book test. So, but it turns out it's the funniest book test you will ever do. It says so right there. So tune in tomorrow to find out if that is a true statement or not. Thanks for watching, folks. We'll see you then. Peace out.